all of a sudden, I felt this hot pierce. Then everything went black.
Matthew and Nancy Botsford worked hard and played even harder. They pursued everything in life with gusto, except when it came to God.
I knew God existed, but that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
But everything changed on one March night in 1992. Matthew and two sales associates were in Atlanta on business. They had just left a restaurant and had gone outside to catch a taxi when suddenly... Matthew and his friends never saw it coming. A group of men behind them were arguing when three of them pulled out 9mm Uzis and started shooting. One of Matthew's friends took a bullet to the head and died instantly. The other one was unharmed. Matthew was also shot in the head, and he too died.
Utter blackness. Incredible fear. I went to a place, what I believe was hell. It was void of anything good. Icy cold beyond anything words can describe. And this hand came down towards me. And as it did, it brought warmth, just flooding this room, this area that I was in, with this brilliant white light. And then I felt this motion. I was being pulled upwards. I heard this voice, and it said, "It's not your time."
Matthew was resuscitated on the scene and taken to Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. Nancy flew in from their home state of Michigan. Her first meeting with the doctor was devastating.
He said, if he makes it through the night, there's a 30% chance to get through the night. After that, he'll probably be in a wheelchair. And they didn't know with the brain injury that if he'd be a vegetable or not. At that point, they didn't know, and he says, and he might even have to be in an institution.
Nancy took a walk down a corridor to clear her head.
In front of me, I just started seeing this blackness. I just got the horrible news of Matthew, and it was just incredible. And this blackness just started getting in front of me, just getting bigger, and I just felt myself falling into this blackness. I had no control. I was just losing it. And that's when I felt this heavy hand on my right shoulder, and there was nobody there. And right then I knew it was Jesus. I went straight back to Matt's room, and he's all wrapped up and bandaged, and I just said, Lord, and I'm not saved, nothing. I went, Lord, bring back my husband, even if he's in a wheelchair. It doesn't matter, but bring back who he is, who his heart is, who his personality is. I promise I'll stay with him.
That promise would be tested. Matthew was in a coma and flatlined several times. Nancy lived hour to hour, as it seemed that one crisis followed another. But with every crisis came a glimmer of hope.
It seems like every situation, it would be critical, and then things would turn around. He was put on a kidney dialysis. They said, oh, he'll be on this for 3 weeks, 3 days. Things turned around.
After 27 days, Matthew awoke from his coma.
It was incredible. It was like being reconnected. But as soon as that connection, and he woke up, I said, that's it. So the whole focus was now to get him on his feet, to go against the odds that he's going to be in a wheelchair, he's going to an institution.
The left side of Matthew's body was paralyzed. But even worse, the damage to his brain affected his ability to think and perform even the simplest of tasks. They returned to Michigan, where Matthew started rehab, trying to rebuild his body and his mind.
The rehab was painful. I mean, physically it was painful. Cognitively it was painful. I mean, I remember I would do simple things like run through the alphabet in my head, you know, make sure I could go from A to Z. They were teaching me and helping me how to eat.
For 2.5 long years, Matthew worked through the pain with Nancy by his side. Progress was slow. He eventually left the wheelchair and walked with a cane. But recovering mentally was a much slower process. But Nancy remembered her promise to stay with Matthew through it all.
Cognitively, he was not with it. He was in La La Land. And so, yeah, it was that thought of, you know, boy, I didn't sign up for this. But I remembered I made that promise, and that was stronger than what I signed up for.
The Botsfords were so focused on Matthew's regimen, they all but forgot their experiences with God.
There was no focus there. There was no focus. It was all about Matthew and get him, you know, to get more therapies.
That is until they moved to Florida. One day Matthew met a neighbor while out taking a walk.
And I remember kind of like looking up and saying, hey, where's a good church around here? And I was just like, floored me what came out of my mouth and floored my wife.
I said, what? We're not looking for a church.
But eventually they attended an Easter service.
We just knew then. We both looked at each other and said, this is it. This is what we need. And it was this peace, this anchor, this stability. It just like took us over.
Through the years, they began to recognize God's hand in their journey. Today, Matthew walks without the help of a cane. Mentally, he earned a college degree and is writing a series of sci-fi children's books called Johnny Rocket. All of which is pretty amazing, considering the bullet is still in Matthew's head. But the big miracle in this story?
When I was dead, I didn't cry out for God. But yet he came down and with his own hand pulled me up out of hell and says, it's not your time. I mean, that's a loving God.
The miracle is how God so much loved Matthew that he didn't just leave him in hell, that he brought him up. But the miracle is how he changed his heart. God exchanged his heart for Matthew's and gave him his own.